The Native Americans relied a lot on horses. They used them for many things, including war. This war paint on the horse has examples of the different symbols of each paint marking. They were used for transporting goods, food, and building supplies back to the tribe. They were used to hunt and get around wherever they needed to quickly. Horses can run up to 35 miles per hour. The Native Americans also used them in burial rituals to send the human spirit along with the horse spirit to guide it.
During our journey, we saw wild horses galloping in bands over the plains almost daily, several of which were caught by our Indians and domesticated with but little trouble. They pursued them on very fleet horses until sufficiently near to leash them. When thus captured, they exert all their remaining force in fruitless endeavors to escape, and finally become gentle from exhaustion. In this situation, they are bridled, mounted, and then whipped into action. Other horses are usually rode before that they may be induced to follow. If then they move forward gently, they are caressed by the rider, but on the contrary, most cruelly beaten if they refuse to proceed or act otherwise unruly. A few days' practice seldom fails to render them quite docile and obedient. The process of catching wild horses by throwing a noose over their head is here called leashing, and all Indians in the mountains, as well as those who rove in the plains east of them, are quite expert at it, although in this respect far behind the inhabitants of New Mexico. Life in the Rocky Mountains, Warren Ferris, 1830. The usual mode of taking wild horses is by throwing the lasso whilst pursuing them at full speed and dropping a noose over their necks, by which their speed is soon checked and they are choked down. The lasso is a thong of rawhide some 10 or 15 yards in length, twisted or braided, with a noose fixed at one end of it, which, when the coil of the lasso is thrown out, drops with great certainty over the neck of the animal, which is soon conquered. The Indian, when he starts for a wild horse, mounts one of the fleetest he can get, and coiling his lasso on his arm, starts off under the full whip till he can enter the band, when he soon gets it over the neck of one of the number, when he instantly dismounts, leaving his own horse and runs as fast as he can, letting the lasso pass out gradually and carefully through his hands, until the horse falls for want of breath and lies helpless on the ground. At which time the Indian advances slowly toward the horse's head, keeping his lasso tight upon its neck, until he fastens a pair of hobbles on the animal's 2 forefeet, and also loosens the lasso, giving the horse chance to breathe, and gives it a noose around the under jaw, by which he gets great power over the affrighted animal, which is rearing and plunging when it gets its breath, and by which, as he advances hand over hand toward the horse's nose, he is able to hold it down and prevent it from throwing itself over on its back as the hazard of his limbs. By this means he gradually advances until he is able to place his hand on the animal's nose and over its eyes, and at length to breathe in its nostrils, when it soon becomes docile and conquered, so that he has little else to do than remove the hobbles from his feet and lead or ride it into camp.
These methods are not always used today. Breaking horses is very different nowadays. A relay race that is done still today, they run horses a lap or two, then when it's time for the other person to get on, they run and jump on the horse when the other gets off and finishes the race.